What kind of day begins with a sunrise that feels like a warning? This morning, as I stood by the kitchen window of my small Boston apartment, the golden light spilling across the chipped countertop seemed to whisper of trouble ahead. My hands, calloused from years at Maple Diner, curled around a warm coffee mug, but the warmth couldn't touch the knot in my stomach. Today was Caroline's wedding, my ex-sister-in-law's lavish affair. And the last place I wanted to be was among Michael's family, who'd spent years reminding me I was never good enough. Yet, for my son Tyler, I'd face it all. Little did I know, this day would unravel secrets that would change our lives forever. I took a slow sip, the coffee's bitterness mirroring my mood. 5 miles from downtown, our apartment was modest. A single bedroom, a couch that doubled as my bed, and walls adorned with Tyler's crayon drawings. It wasn't much, but it was ours, built on my sweat and stubborn pride. For 10 years I'd worked at the diner, taking every shift to keep us afloat. Long hours, sore feet, and customers who tipped in coins were my reality, but I never complained. Tyler was my reason to keep going, his bright eyes and quick mind a reminder of what mattered. 3 years ago, my world had shattered when Michael, my husband, announced his affair with his secretary, a woman 10 years younger, all sharp smiles and sharper ambition. "I want a divorce," he'd said, cold as winter. I didn't cry. I signed the papers, packed our bags, and took 5-year-old Tyler to my parents' place. No begging, no scene, just quiet acceptance. That was my armor, my refusal to break. "Mom, I can't tie my tie." Tyler's voice broke through my thoughts, pulling me to the living room. There he stood, my 8-year-old, in front of the mirror, his small fingers wrestling with the red tie draped around his neck. I set my mug down and knelt, the worn carpet rough against my knees. "This is tricky," I said, my voice soft as I smoothed the fabric. His blue eyes, sharp and knowing, met mine. He'd noticed how Michael's family treated me, Beverly's icy stares, Caroline's barbed comments about my place. Once he'd asked, "Grandma Beverly and Aunt Caroline don't like you, do they?" I'd brushed it off with a smile, saying adult relationships were complicated, but his frown told me he wasn't fooled. As I looped the tie into a neat knot, a pang tightened my chest. I didn't want to go, but Tyler had pleaded to see his dad. For him, I'd endure anything. I stood, smoothing my navy dress, simple, understated, chosen to avoid attention. My hands trembled slightly, betraying the calm I tried to project. "Today's special, Tyler," I said, forcing a smile. "It's your aunt's wedding, so we need to be extra polite." He studied me, his gaze heavy with understanding. He knew I dreaded this, knew why I'd agreed. I placed my hands on his shoulders, my voice steady despite the weight in my heart. "No matter what happens, we're family. Never forget that." He nodded, his trust absolute. As we stepped toward the door, I felt a chill, like the air itself was holding its breath. The taxi waited outside, ready to carry us to the Grand Harbor View Hotel, 3 miles away. I had no idea the day would test us, break us open, and set us free. But in that moment, with Tyler's hand in mine, I knew we'd face it together. Why does elegance sometimes feel like a slap? As our taxi pulled up to the Grand Harbor View Hotel, its towering glass windows glinting like a crown under Boston's midday sun, I felt a twist of unease. 3 miles from our cramped apartment, this world of chandeliers and marble floors stretched 10 feet high, a glittering reminder of everything I wasn't. I'd spent years shielding Tyler from the sting of Michael's family, Beverly's disdain, Caroline's smirks. But today, we were stepping into their domain. I glanced at my son, his small hands fidgeting in his lap, and wondered if he felt the same weight. What I didn't know was how sharply their cruelty would cut, or how it would spark something unbreakable in us. We stepped out, the air thick with expensive perfume and the scent of fresh roses. The hotel's entrance loomed, its polished doors reflecting my navy dress and Tyler's neatly tied red tie. Inside, laughter echoed through the vast reception hall, where guests in tailored suits and shimmering gowns mingled. Waiters in crisp white uniforms glided past, balancing trays of champagne flutes. I led Tyler toward the reception table, my grip on his hand tightening, as a young woman in a black dress scanned the guest list. "Mrs. Thompson?" she asked, her brows furrowing. She hesitated, whispering to another staff member, who glanced at me, nodded, and vanished into the crowd. My stomach churned. Something was wrong. "Right this way," she said with a nervous smile, leading us through the hall. Guests barely spared us a glance, their chatter a dull roar over the clink of glasses. We reached our table, and my breath caught. The name tags in front of our seats were a punch to the gut. Single mother waitress for me, single mother's child for Tyler. I blinked, my face burning as the words sank in. They weren't a mistake, they were deliberate, a cruel joke carved in elegant script. Tyler stared at the tags, his small hands clenching into fists, his jaw tight. I saw the hurt in his eyes, the confusion, and something fiercer. Anger. My first instinct was to grab him and leave, to flee this glittering cage where we were mocked. But I couldn't. Not yet. I flipped the cards over, hiding the words, and forced a smile. "It's okay, sweetheart," I whispered, my voice thinner than I wanted. "Just a bad joke." He sat beside me, silent, his expression unreadable as the hall filled with guests. Beverly arrived then, a vision in a silver gray gown, pearls gleaming at her neck. She moved through the crowd like royalty, her confidence unshakable. When her gaze landed on me, her lips curved into a smirk, sharp and cold. "Oh, Sarah, you came," she said, her voice dripping with mock surprise. "And little Tyler, too. How nice." I nodded politely, swallowing the retort burning in my throat. She barely glanced at Tyler before turning to greet more esteemed guests, her dismissal a familiar sting. I smoothed my dress, my fingers trembling. I'd endured her barbs for years, her comments about my job, my station. But today felt different, heavier, like a storm gathering strength. The music swelled, signaling the ceremony's start. Caroline entered, glowing in an extravagant gown, diamonds sparkling at her throat. Her smile was dazzling, her poise perfect, as if the world belonged to her. I kept my face neutral, but inside, I felt like a stranger in a place that had long since cast me out. Tyler sat rigid beside me, his eyes darting between the aisle and our hidden name tags. I reached for his hand under the table, squeezing gently. The vows, the rings, the applause, it all blurred into a haze. I wanted to believe we could get through this, slip away unnoticed. But as the reception loomed, I felt the weight of eyes on us, the whisper of judgment in the air. I didn't know then that the worst was yet to come, or that Tyler, my quiet, brave boy, was already steeling himself to turn their cruelty back on them. How does a single moment twist a celebration into a crucible? As the reception unfolded in the Grand Harbor View Hotel's glittering hall, the clink of crystal glasses and the hum of laughter felt like a veneer over something sinister. Caroline's wedding had already branded me an outsider with those cruel name tags, and now, seated at a table 6 feet from the next, I clutched Tyler's hand, my heart pounding against the weight of judgment. The lavish decor, gold-plated cutlery, roses cascading from centerpieces, only deepened my sense of displacement. I'd hoped to endure this night quietly, but as Beverly's gaze flickered toward me, her pearls glinting like tiny moons, I sensed a storm about to break. The air was thick with anticipation, and I had no idea it would push my son to the edge of courage. The reception hall buzzed with energy, waiters weaving through the crowd, their trays heavy with lobster bisque and seared scallops. Guests leaned into their conversations, their voices a dull roar over the string quartet's melody. Tyler sat rigid beside me, his eyes darting to the head table where Caroline glowed, her diamond necklace catching the chandelier's light. I tried to focus on the plate before me, the food untouched, my appetite buried under the memory of those name tags. Single mother waitress, single mother's child. I'd flipped them over, but their sting lingered, a reminder of how Michael's family saw us. My fingers tightened around my napkin, the linen crumpling. I wanted to shield Tyler from this world, but his silence worried me. His small hand, still in mine, felt warm but tense, like he was holding something back. Then, a sharp clink silenced the room. Beverly stood, microphone in hand, her silver gray gown shimmering as she commanded attention. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice rich with practiced elegance. "Thank you for joining us to celebrate my beloved daughter, Caroline." Polite applause rippled through the hall. She smiled, soaking in the adoration, her eyes glinting as they found me. Weddings are about love, family, and inclusivity, she continued, her tone syrupy. My spine stiffened. Which is why we're so pleased to have special guests tonight. She gestured toward me, and murmurs spread like wildfire. Our dear former family member, Sarah, is here, having worked tirelessly as a waitress for over a decade. A few chuckles broke out, sharp and cutting. My face burned, the room blurring at the edges. Beverly wasn't done. In honor of that dedication, she said, her voice laced with mock sweetness, perhaps Sarah wouldn't mind helping serve dinner tonight. Laughter erupted, a wave crashing over me. My throat closed, words trapped behind a wall of humiliation. Every eye was on me, waiting for a reaction, some amused, others pitying. Michael sat across the hall, his drink in hand, staring at the table, his silence a betrayal as sharp as Beverly's words. I wanted to stand, to run, to take Tyler and vanish, but my body felt anchored, numb. The laughter pressed down, a weight I couldn't lift. I glanced at Tyler, expecting to see him shrink, but his face was set, his jaw tight. Then, his chair scraped against the marble floor, the sound slicing through the din. He stood, his small frame trembling but resolute, and my heart lurched. Whatever he was about to do, I knew it would change everything. Can a child's voice shatter a room's pretense? As Tyler pushed back his chair, the scrape echoed like a thunderclap in the Grand Harbor View Hotel's reception hall, silencing the laughter that had mocked me moments before. My heart pounded as I watched my 8-year-old son walk toward the stage, his red tie slightly askew, his step steady despite the sea of well-dressed adults staring. Beverly's cruel suggestion that I serve dinner to prove my place still hung in the air, and I was frozen, humiliated, expecting Tyler to crumble under the weight of it all. But his eyes, bright and fierce, told a different story. In that moment, I realized he wasn't just my son. He was my defender, and the truth he carried would tear this wedding apart. Tyler climbed onto the stage, barely tall enough to reach the microphone. The room fell into a hush, the clink of glasses and whispers fading. He took a deep breath, his small hands clenched at his sides. "Please stop making fun of my mom," he said, his voice clear, unwavering, carrying across the hall's 10-foot ceilings. My breath caught, tears pricking my eyes. My mom works hard every single day. She wakes up at 5 to pack my lunch, helps me with homework even when she's exhausted, and stands on her feet all day at Maple Diner, smiling at rude customers just to give me everything I need. His words were a blade, cutting through the room's arrogance. She never complains, even when people treat her badly. But nobody has the right to treat her like this. Beverly stepped forward, her smile tight. "Sweet boy," she cooed, her voice dripping with false warmth. "Let's leave the grown-up talk for later. I'll get you ice cream, chocolate, maybe 2 scoops. Tyler's expression didn't waver. "I don't want ice cream," he said sharply. "I want people to stop treating my mom like she doesn't matter." A murmur rippled through the crowd, guests shifting uncomfortably. Beverly opened her mouth, but Tyler cut her off. "I wasn't going to say anything," he admitted, his fingers tightening around the microphone. "But after what you did, Grandma Beverly, everyone deserves the truth." My stomach twisted. The truth? Caroline straightened at the head table, her face paling as she glanced at Michael, then Tyler. "I heard you," Tyler said, his voice steady but his shoulders tense. 3 days ago, I went to Aunt Caroline's house to drop off a letter Mom forgot to mail. I saw Dad's car outside. Michael's face drained of color, his fingers gripping the table. The door was open, and I heard you talking. Caroline forced a smile. "You must have misheard, sweetheart," she said, her voice brittle. "It's a wedding. Let's not ruin it." Tyler shook his head. "I have proof." He pulled Michael's old phone from his pocket. A birthday gift from months ago? My gasp was drowned by the crowd's murmur. He tapped the screen and held it to the microphone. Static crackled, then Caroline's voice. "I want to see Sarah's stupid face at the wedding. I'll write single mother waitress and humiliate her. Beverly's on board." A collective gasp rose. Michael's voice followed. "Be careful. What if people find out you're pregnant with my child?" The room erupted, screams, clattering forks, frantic whispers. Caroline gripped the tablecloth, her face white. "James doesn't know," her recorded voice continued, smug. "If I tell him after we're married, it'll be too late." James, the groom, sat frozen, his hands trembling. His father stood, face hard. "Son, we're leaving." James pulled off his wedding band, placed it on the table, and walked away. Caroline sobbed, "James, please!" But he didn't look back. Beverly hissed, "You fools!" her arrogance crumbling. Michael slumped, running a shaking hand through his hair, shame in his eyes. I stood, my voice steady despite the chaos. "You humiliated me, Beverly, but the shame is yours." To Michael, I added, "You destroyed yourself." Taking Tyler's hand, I said, "We don't belong here." We walked out, heads high, leaving the wreckage behind. What does it mean to walk away from chaos and find the ground steady beneath you? As Tyler and I stepped out of the Grand Harbor View Hotel into Boston's cool evening air, the echoes of Caroline's sobs and Beverly's frantic muttering faded behind us. My hand clasped Tyler's, his small fingers anchoring me after the storm we'd just endured. The taxi waited 3 miles from home, its headlights a beacon in the dusk. I'd faced their cruelty, stood tall as their secrets unraveled, and now, with the glittering hall in our rear view, I felt a flicker of something new, freedom. But the world we'd left wasn't done collapsing, and the days ahead would show me just how far we'd risen. The ride home was quiet, Tyler's head resting against my shoulder, his breath slow and even. I stared out the window, the city's lights blurring into streaks of gold. My heart still raced from the confrontation, but a calm settled over me. We'd walked out with our dignity, leaving Michael's family to face their disgrace. Back at our apartment, I tucked Tyler into bed, his eyes heavy but thoughtful. "I'm sorry, Mom," he whispered, "but I couldn't let them hurt you." I kissed his forehead, my voice soft. "You did nothing wrong, sweetheart." As he drifted off, I sat by the window, the silence of our small space a stark contrast to the hotel's clamor. For the first time, I didn't feel small. The weeks that followed brought whispers of the wedding's fallout. Michael's company, stung by the scandal, quietly let him go, his once shiny reputation tarnished beyond repair. Doors that had opened for him now slammed shut, his arrogance reduced to a cautionary tale. Caroline, unable to face the stairs, packed up and moved 500 miles west, raising her child alone in a life she'd once mocked me for living. Beverly, the proud matriarch, found her social circle evaporating. The same elites she'd courted now shunned her, their invitations replaced by cold silence. One evening, a letter arrived on her crisp, expensive stationery. "I was wrong," she wrote, her words stiff. "I don't expect forgiveness, but I'm sorry." I read it twice, my fingers tracing the ink. Then I penned a reply. "I can let the past go, but I'll never forget." I mailed it the next morning, the act of a quiet release. At Maple Diner, 2 miles from home, life shifted. One afternoon, as I wiped down a sticky table, Mr. Hartman, the owner, called me into his office. "Sarah, you've been here over 10 years, he said, leaning back in his creaky chair. "You've worked harder than anyone, never complained." I blinked, unsure. "I'm promoting you to deputy manager." My heart stopped, tears burning my eyes. "Me?" He chuckled. "Yes, you. It's time." I whispered a shaky, "Thank you." The badge in my hands a tangible weight of worth. The community, too, began to see us differently. Strangers stopped by the diner, their handshakes warm. "You stood up for yourself," one woman said, her eyes kind. "Your boy's braver than most men." I smiled, warmth spreading through me. The world was changing, and we were no longer invisible. When does a wound become a window to something brighter? Months after the wedding, as I stood in our Boston apartment, adjusting the deputy manager badge on my uniform, I felt a spark of excitement I hadn't known in years. The chaos of that night at the Grand Harbor View Hotel was a distant echo, replaced by a life we were building on our terms. Tyler sprawled across the couch, his math homework scattered, his pencil caught between his teeth. Our small space, 5 miles from downtown, hummed with possibility. The scars of humiliation lingered, but they'd forged us stronger. And as I looked at my son, I knew our story was just beginning. Tyler had changed since that night. At school, he walked with a quiet confidence, his teachers praising his sharp mind. One afternoon, he burst through the door, waving a certificate. "Mom, I won the class debate," he grinned, his eyes alight. It was about standing up for what's right. I pulled him into a hug, my chest swelling with pride. "That's my boy," I said, ruffling his hair. His classmates listened when he spoke now, drawn to the strength he'd shown. The boy who'd once hesitated was becoming a leader, his courage a beacon. I saw it in the way he helped a shy kid at recess, in the way he answered questions with conviction. He was growing into someone extraordinary, and I was his biggest fan. My path was shifting too. 3 nights a week, after my shifts at Maple Diner, I drove 4 miles to the community college, my textbooks heavy in my bag. Sitting in a classroom again felt strange, the fluorescent lights harsh after years of serving coffee. But I was determined, chasing a degree in nutrition, a dream I'd buried long ago. The lectures sparked something in me, ideas about food and health that felt like puzzle pieces clicking into place. One evening, as I studied at the kitchen table, Tyler sat across, chin in hands. "Mom, could you own a restaurant one day?" he asked, his voice thoughtful. I paused, surprised. "Yeah," I said, a smile spreading. "I've taken the first step." He grinned. "When you do, I'll be your first customer." I laughed, warmth flooding me. Deal. The community's support grew too. Regulars at the diner left bigger tips, their smiles genuine. "You're an inspiration," one man said, his voice gruff but kind. I'd nod, deflecting, but the words sank in. For years I'd felt like I was fighting to prove my worth, but now I was simply living it. One night, Tyler and I curled up on the couch, a bowl of popcorn between us, his favorite movie flickering on the screen. As he leaned against my shoulder, his breathing slowing, I ran my fingers through his hair. The weight I'd carried, Michael's betrayal, Beverly's scorn, was gone. We'd faced it all and come out stronger. As winter settled over Boston, I stood before my mirror, the deputy manager badge gleaming. Tyler darted in, waving an A-plus test paper. "Look, Mom," he beamed. I hugged him, my heart full. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. Life never was. But I wasn't afraid. I thought of the hotel, the laughter, the moment Tyler took the stage. We'd been humiliated, broken, but we'd risen. Our story wasn't about loss. It was about resilience, love, and the courage to rebuild. As I tucked Tyler in that night, his face peaceful, I whispered, "We're going to be okay." And for the first time in years, I believed it, excited for the future we'd shape together.